Welcome back, everyone. Today we got this thing here going on the saw. So let's take a look and see what we got. So this is a chunk of ash. I got this from my friends over at NR Tree Service out in Richmond, Wisconsin. This is out of their chipper pile. So otherwise this would have been wood chips. This is kind of a weird one in the sense that like there's lots of different planes that we could saw this thing in, because there's so many different crotches and limbs and other things that we'll look at in a second. But just to give you a look around here, we have this kind of crotch, we have this crotch, we have the main stem going straight up there, and then around this side there is another limb coming off in this direction here. So you have this sort of like double crotch thing in this plane, also sort of a double crotch thing in this plane with this much smaller limb over here, but there's a bigger crotch section right there. Another orientation might be this way, where you have both of these crotches coming together, or both these limbs coming together into a double crotch figure type of thing. In this way, so it was like three planes that we're kind of looking at that we could saw this thing in. Also kind of fun and notably on here, you can see this undulation here in the bark. That is some curl, which should be expected because we have this limb up here that is compression figure from the weight of this limb making all of this buckle, essentially. But like on a normal area, the bark is smooth, but you get some compression area and you can see the ripple here, which would translate to be curl when we get down into the actual wood. It's kind of this fun like circular curl thing going on around here, around this spot. This might have been a limb at some point or something. I don't really know. That's kind of a weird one. And then also notably, you can see this split or furrow that goes down on this side, and it comes down on the other side as well. Right here, right through here. So that could have been a lightning strike, but most likely that is a frost split. So if a tree gets any water inside of it in the winter, the water expands and causes the tree to split apart. That's more likely what that is on this tree. Other than that, though, not really, I don't think I have a lot more to point out, other than it's pretty big, and I will figure out which orientation I'm going to do on this thing as I'm getting it onto the saw and getting it all leveled out, I guess. Yes, Max wants me to point out the little nub. It's got this little nub in here for something. And this kind of hole down here where the split is.
You can see inside there.
This is all grown back together.
Daddy, you should cut wood splitters.
Like in line with the split?
Yeah, you can cut exactly where the split is. So it splits in half exactly where it was splitting.
We can try that. We can try cutting along the split. So we'll cut from this plane here, this way. That split will be included in one of the slabs though, across its thickness, which might be kind of weird too.
Ooh,
I don't know, we'll see.
Daddy, it's purple.
Well, they sprayed it for removal. It was painted. This is how we want to do it. We want to try and cut it with the split.
The whole thing is hollow.
Okay, we'll get it more on the bed. Maybe we'll do that. Everyone always says I should cut it to remove defects like that instead of looking for visually interesting things. So maybe That'll be a good demo this time of showing removing stuff like this instead of incorporating it. How's that look? Is that better? Probably go over a little more, huh? All right, so this is gonna be a little different than usual because normally I would do whatever's gonna work out best for figure up there and have this cracker inclusion in the length of the slab as a feature. So in this case, to saw this way, you're basically gonna throw away all of this because that crack and split's gonna run through the thickness or the in and out of the face of anything that comes near that area of the log. So instead of having more yield with more figure, but with the crack in it, now you're gonna have, I guess, more material that doesn't have nearly as much interesting figure going on, but it doesn't have any cracks or splits in it. So this would be a more traditional sawing approach to basically everything, where you're just trying to get as much clear, straight grain stuff as possible. And you don't really care about the visual appearances of the grain or anything like that. So this should be a pretty good demonstration of something I typically would never do because Max wants to see it. And the nice thing about this is this is just going to go to become wood chips anyway, so anything we can get out of it is that much better than what it was going to be. So what I think I'm going to do, just for the fun of things, we're going to make some oblong cookies. So I'm going to come in here at this height and make a facing cut, and we'll get a few cuts out of here, and this will make some oval shaped cookie things for I don't know what. Maybe Max will like them, whatever. This would have been thrown away anyway, this chunk. And then we'll get down to our full length facing cut, and we'll have the type of crotch figure where you have a bit of figure on top of the limb and you have like a big bullseye thing. There'll be a big bullseye right here, and then there'll be some like sunburst pattern figure above the bullseye. These are kind of cool. They look almost like flames with the way the grain is, kind of oval shaped. Looks kind of like a flame. Yeah. That's nice, a little figure. Those are fun little bonus slabs. So now we can come down here and figure out where our facing cut's gonna be. And I'm gonna try and do some math here so that the blade ends up somewhere down here as we make all these cuts. All right, let me get some water for this so I can show you what I'm talking about with how the grains are going to present here. So you'll have that bullseye from that limb coming up this way, and you should see some figure starting to occur on the top here. We'll see a lot more of it as we get to the next slice, but you can see there's some curl and some figure on top versus the crotch feather that you would normally see, which is running right there. This figure up here is basically the perpendicular cut to the crotch feather. Not as interesting in my opinion, but you do get more wood, like more uniform wood, and there's not like a big hook crotch taper thing. You have more uniform width, I guess is what I'm saying, with this style of orientation on these crotch cuts. And that's just sapwood, clear sapwood. But some of you observant folks probably saw that there are actual cracks in different planes, like this one here we're perpendicular to, and that is also going to present itself on the surface as well. So although it is fairly clear and straight and there's no defects, down here this is a split, so you do have a smaller split, which is another reason why I don't really care about orienting the log to best eliminate splits, because if you're going to have a big split like that, you're probably going to have some other splits somewhere, and that's just part of the character of the log. I'd rather have a big split and some awesome figure than some so-so figure and some other little split somewhere else. Anywho, I think we can go ahead and just saw. I think I should be able to get all the way down to the crack. I think that is 4 slabs is how I did the math on that one. I think that's what I did. It's been a few minutes. I forgot already. Something weird happened as I was cutting, like right here. I heard like a snap and a pop. So maybe you release some kind of internal tension, or I don't know what. I guess we'll find out when we go look. I don't know what. Be up a hair. It's like 2. That's 2. Okay. That's right where I want to be. Now the piece of 10 cord will be right here, and we should eliminate, or not eliminate, but have this contained within that next slab. And we can make that next slab as thick as we want to contain all this defect, if we want. All right, let's make another cut. From I think here to here, there was almost no resistance, and as I looked over to watch the sawdust shoot, there's like nothing coming out. So I'm gonna guess that there is a nice void in this cut, right in here somewhere. Right now, I can either make the next waste cut to remove all of the crack, or we can pull back these 4 slabs and take a look. I think I'm going to pull back the slabs and take a look so we can see what we're dealing with as far as this defect that we're trying to exclude. Let's see what these first ones are doing. Ooh, at least it's pretty. So this one kind of builds on that first cut, although we do have some notable curl down here at the buttress. And there's your bullseye thing with your bit of figure on top of it. You end up with a cookie in the middle of your slab. That's kind of the look when you orient the crotch, whatever you want to call that, perpendicular to the whatever. You orient the crotch perpendicular instead of parallel to the bed of the saw. There's all that compression figure underneath that limb, so that's really nice. It's a lot of nice curl all down through here, which is nice. Then this one we start seeing that cracks starting to really start showing up even more. So this is all split through here. But I do like the look of that. It's got this really nice kind of subtle crack kind of look. It almost looks like it's part of the grain of the wood here. And then we got this situation here. There's actually a lot of crazy stuff going on here around this sea of well, knots, basically. Lots of compression figure down through here, which is absolutely beautiful. And there's a kind of almost a split, or not quite a bark inclusion, but there is a structural issue right there. And you got some more figure on top of the limb there. So let me grab the next one and we'll see what's happening there. It looks like we're starting to get some rot coming through here. Yep. So now we have this bit here, which looks like some ring shake. So it's an actual like separation there. We got some rot kind of forming around here. This is all super duper soft. I can pick it out of there with my finger. And then up here we got a little bit of figure. A little bit of figure. I got this other split crack check thing going on there too. So this tree's got all kinds of structural defects in it, which is kind of cool. It is very uniform in width, at least until it necks down up here, but down here is very uniform at least. That's the plus, I guess. Okay, let's see if I jostled this thing at all as I was moving stuff off of here. So I'm just bringing the blade down so it's just touching the wood. And if it's touching uniformly on the left and the right, which it is pretty close, the left side, this side, pivoted down a little bit. So either I can pick it back up a little bit, or we can cut it as is and we'll have a tapered slab, or we can roll it over. So many options. I think I'm just gonna, well, I don't know what I want to do here. What do we care about? Do we really care? Do we just, yeah, we'll just shove that little block back in a little further and see what happens. All right, we're good. So that's maybe another common question. It's like, why do I leave the slabs on there and not offload them? So there's two reasons. The first off is weight. So the more weight on there, the less likely the log is to move while it's being cut. But then the other one is exactly what we just saw here. If you start pulling slabs off of here, you can end up affecting the roll, and one of your cuts will be tapered. So your slab or your wood or whatever you're cutting will be thicker on one side than the other. So it's very likely you'll jostle the log around as you're trying to get those slabs off of there, which is why I don't typically do that. The better workflow, if you're worried about that, would be to make your facing cut and then roll the log completely over and then make all your cuts down after that point, because then you have that flat reference down the bed. You don't have to worry about the log rolling around because it doesn't have a round side to roll on. All right, what was I doing? Let's see where we're gonna make this next cut at. I think we could probably just come down the same distance and do another piece of 10/4, and that'll put us down there somewhere. I kind of tried to line up everything on the sides here to get this split and the split on the other side in the same plane. Assuming that the split just went like straight out, but it actually went kind of out that way and up in this direction too. It kind of went all over the place, which is another reason why you can't just do this, because it's very rare that the split actually just goes straight longitudinally down the log. It typically will either twist a little bit if the tree twisted as it grew a little bit, or like we see here where it actually like spider webbed out into different areas. Anyway, that's all to say. I'm just gonna keep cutting this thing at 10/4 and we'll see what we get. Hopefully we'll get some crotch figure out of these two limbs here and they're not all rotten. Two. Half a turn. Half a turn, please. Conductor. Half a turn, please. Still not really sure what this like furrow is right here. I thought to be like some sign of something as we got in here, but there's nothing crazy happening here, so I don't know what caused that. Well, I guess now we can flip it after we look at these cuts. That really moved quite a bit. Normally, or I guess traditionally, this would go straight to the burn pile. But just for the sake of ease of things, I'm going to keep this all together with the rest of the slabs. Wild. All right, let's just see what's going on here for funsies. I mean, it is pretty cool. We are getting just a little bit hint of some crotch figure up here, but it did turn into maybe a bark inclusion, maybe just kind of a rotten inclusion over time. This guy over here is a bark inclusion, which actually looks pretty cool with the waviness on the edge of the, the edge of the cut, the waviness through here, and there's a bunch of figure and stuff happening over there. Now this piece that fell off, I mean, it's still solid and it's still got a pretty good chunk of usable material in there, so at least there's something. This is kind of cool. I don't know, I kind of like the black, like in there with the double, this is where the crotch figure should be. But instead we got this like empty void situation here coming down to this other black void. So I don't know, maybe if someone's really into a epoxy or something, that could be a cool like black fill epoxy thing that kind of ties into the black that's already in there. I don't really know. I still have no idea what's going on here with this weird dip in here, because there's nothing like here that would indicate that there was some kind of like weird like wound or puncture, or really I don't see anything crazy happening here unless whatever it was is now gone. It used to be in this kind of area. I don't know. I guess we'll see what's left of that next one. The next one's probably not going to look too great either. I wonder how solid that it still is. That's a little bit of mush. This is gonna come right out when I try and move it, just like the other one. You can see the split right here. Oh no, maybe it might be okay. If it's okay, this is one of the coolest slabs I've seen in a long time. All right, let's see. A little pond down here. I mean, this is kind of a fun contrast of things. You have like the perfect, beautiful crotch feather through here. You have this, what probably used to be a bark inclusion or something, with all of the black stain around it. And then you get down here, and you're pretty well clear quarter sawn stock on the outside, and you get this kind of rot stain area as you kind of get towards the middle, and then the really middle is just mush. Well, look at this. This is kind of cool. It was compartmentalizing inside of here. Huh. So maybe there was, this is the same area where that whatever you want to call it, the little furrow thing is. So there must have been something happening in here because the tree was growing around it. So it could have been like, I don't know what, maybe like someone hit it with a lawnmower, or I don't know what, they hit it with something. Got some damage down there and then it healed itself up. I don't really know. There's quite a bit of curl and figure kind of up through here. And then on this side too, there's a pretty good amount of compression figure there. So I think this is kind of a cool piece. And just for some numbers, here. Right here at the very, very bottom. 30 inches, kind of here at the narrowest where that little furrow thing is 24. And up in here, we're at 27. So this little tippy tip here, it's 41. And then, I don't know if this matters or not, 44 up there. I don't know, it's just a cool, it's like the colors are pretty amazing on this one. 107. Oh, this one looks promising. It's got just enough like rot and grossness to it. Ooh, that's like the most three-dimensional like curl figure that I've seen in a while. Okay, there's that knot with all of this figure around it. There's quite a bit of compression figure up here from the weight of this limb bearing down on here. Look at all that ripple. Isn't that pretty? That's amazing. We have some more over here. You can see it all through here on the corner. This is starting to get a little bit on the soft side. It's not quite as mush as a lot of the other stuff, but it has that kind of rot stain look to it. And that just kind of surrounds the where the crotch figure should be. It's just this little bit up top here, then it goes to a bark inclusion, then it goes to a void, which kind of goes all the way down to the base of the tree. Here's some more of that compartmentalization down here where that furrow thing was. So something happened here to cause some kind of wound that the tree closed up around that created that furrow. There is a pretty good amount of little bits of figure here. And then, of course, there's some figure down here for the buttress. But I think as we got further down in here, these started getting a little more interesting and unique. That's for sure. This is kind of soft down here too, but not super duper mushy soft. I can't pick it out with my fingernail, but I can feel it kind of yielding. But kind of cool little defect thing there. And yeah, there's that one. Let's get that guy flipped over, and I think we'll get one more slab out of it. Okay, let's see what we got here now. Now that we're kind of almost away from all that rot. Oh, we got a pruning cut. That's cool. This is pretty nice. So pretty clear all through down here. And then halfway up, we got this old limb with this pruning cut and all kinds of figure-y stuff all around it, and especially up through here as we get the compression figure starting to show. Nice band of crotch right there. And then up here we got a little bit from this little tiny knot here. So, you know, kind of like the other one. You got a little bit of a rot stain thing going on that side. And some voids and stuff here. Kind of a fun contrast of things. All right, let's see what we got this last one. Oh yeah, we got some kind of fun like burly eye things going on here. Mostly all sapwood, a little glimmer of heartwood there. And this kind of like pond of heartwood right here. We got some fun, I don't know, like little burls or bird's eye kind of looking things here and there, and some mineral stains and whatnot. Another old limb and associated figure and whatnot. So I don't know, it's kind of a fun finale to this log. So a little bit different than usual. I think we still got some pretty interesting and unique pieces. Had I sawn this the way that I would normally would, we would have basically two solid pieces and then we'd have some kind of like void situation in the middle, which I think would be a little more interesting than having what we had here, where like a few of them had like giant areas missing and didn't make a whole lot of sense as single pieces, still usable as individual pieces or large epoxy projects, but they do lack a lot of the visual interest that we could have had up here. Otherwise, however, as far as this log goes, it's probably the best use case example of this, because in reality, it wouldn't have been that much different. Had I done this the way I normally would, it would have been, you know, fairly similar to something that we saw on the inside. Because in this case, that crack or that check or that whatever, the crack or void, whatever we saw at the bottom, it definitely turned into a much bigger problem as we got into the tree. So I think it's probably just there was some internal rot in there. There was enough water in there in the winter, and that caused a frost split, which is what we saw towards the outside of the tree, and then of course across the butt once the log was actually felled. So there's sort of a method to my madness here of how I try and saw these things to achieve the most interesting and visually unique grain patterns possible. I'm not just, you know, sawing for traditional straight grain stuff. I'm looking for shape and figure and color and a lot of different variables that aren't typically traditionally seen. And since I do this online a lot, I get to hear from a lot of people who question my intelligence about why I saw things the way I do, because, you know, their dad's, grandpa's, brother's, aunt's, best friend's husband or whatever told them that they had to saw a log a certain way. That was the only good way to saw it, and I'm doing it the wrong way. The fun thing about sawing stuff and turning trees into usable materials is that no two people will look at the same log and necessarily saw it exactly the same way, because they may have different interests in mind to achieve what they actually want to get out of the log, whether that's sawing for grade to get the most uniform high grade material possible, or like me, trying to get the most interesting and unique material possible from an otherwise, you know, unwanted log or whatever. So different ways of doing things, and that's that's all that. So that is going to do it for this one. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the sawmill or anything back in the shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.